Israel is using all means to sow discord and conflict, disregarding the fact that Syrians, throughout their long history, have rejected all forms of separation and division. Possessing great power does not necessarily guarantee victory.
Syria's President Ahmad Ashara just delivered a heavy address to his nation, public statement, and his message is clear: peace and unity for shared prosperity. Speaking directly to his people, Ashara declared, quote, "I speak to you today not as a ruler, but as a servant of our wounded homeland," end quote. And as I've said many times, love him or hate him, one thing he's proven over the last 6 months is that he's a smooth political operator. This is a leader who understands that Syria's future depends on the Syrians themselves, and he cannot afford to be idealistic. He has to be practical, realistic, and loads of people get rubbed the wrong way by that. This is a man who understands that he needs to unify and stabilize his nation if any nation is supposed is give if that nation is to survive, it needs to unify and stabilize. There's no point being idealistic, saying we're going to go against Israel and this and that. A dead man can't stand up for anything. And even so, he's actually having to stand up to some extent because Israel wants more and more and more, and he has to push back. Otherwise, there'll just be a sort of steamroll by the Israeli state. For Ahmed Ashara, it's not about retribution or revenge, though, comparing his rule to Assad's. It's not about ruling by merciless decree. Rule through horrifying repression of the people was what Bashar al-Assad did, and at the time, very few people complained. Now, all of a sudden, minorities in Syria matter. Well, I know why they matter, and I've conveyed to my viewers in many videos now why the minorities suddenly matter. It's a wedge. The minorities can be used as a wedge against the Syrian government that is currently in place to sow destabilization, because that benefits Israel. So anyone who's pushing that narrative, you're falling in line with Israeli hasbara, Israeli propaganda. And I'll explain analytically what I mean. For those who are wondering, by the way, I don't ignore the quote-unquote massacres carried out by the government, first of all, in Syria. First of all, they are not carried out by the government. Every report, even the ones you guys are referencing, talk about government-aligned groups. That's not the same. Me and the mate I got to promise that he won't harm anyone, if he goes and harms someone, it's not the same as me harming someone. I might be responsible even for my mate, but it's not the same. And I explained this in detail in a video, I think yesterday or the day before. So have a look and then let me know what you think. Now, Ahmed al-Sharaa, current president of Hukumatul Inqadh Syria, the Syrian Salvation Government, has a chance, a genuine chance, at Syrian unification. How? Well, for the first time in 50 years, Syria has native majority rule. Nobody talks about this, by the way. It's not the minority control that Assad and his father imposed for 50 years, which is Alawite rule, which is, less than 10% of the population ethnically ruling over the entire population with brutal repression, which is why the civil war popped off. No, Ahmed Ashara's government represents the true demographic reality of Syria, the Muslim Syrian Arabs, and with that comes genuine incentive for collective prosperity. The majority can rule the majority plus some minorities, if the rule is obviously just and capable. The majority are likely to rule with stability, especially if they can extend their hand to the minorities that are left over, as it were, and say, come, take your seat at the table, lay down your arms, join the state, not resist the state, that we may all prosper together. And we're not talking about repression, we're talking about reunification. Unlike occupying forces or minority rulers like Assad, who extract wealth and maintain power through division and brutal crackdown, native majority governments have more skin in the game. They are native majority, right? The majority of the people are represented by the ruling powers. That's the situation as it is in Syria now. They don't see the land and the people as a foreign group. This for them is home. Syria, for Syrian Muslim Arabs, is home, and they make up 80% of the population. It's home to a lot more, of course, but the Muslim Arabs are the majority, so under leadership that represents them, that also wants unification through cooperation, it's much more likely to be achieved. But here's the challenge, beyond just the internal politics of Syria. Foreign actors have skin in the game or want to stay in the game. those who don't care if Syria burns for another 15 years, another 50 years, let it burn. That's what they want. Another civil war, bring it, no problem. All the better, in fact, to keep my northern border destabilized. That's Israel's stance. Looking at things from a geopolitical perspective, it makes sense. Israel has Iran to worry about. They have the nations and paramilitary and resistance groups aligned to Iran or allied to Iran to worry about. They have Egypt and Jordan and Lebanon to worry about. Immediate neighbors at a state level who are fairly aligned, fairly compliant with Israel's current setup, but whose citizens hate the Israeli state's actions in historic Palestine, which means if the government ever did shift, it would actually be beneficial for them in terms of citizen sentiment. So that's always a risk. The Israeli state has the Palestinians to worry about. A fragmented, messed up Syria, unable to rise and succeed, is one less future enemy to worry about, and Israel has plenty to worry about. So one less is very much appreciated. If that means arming one minority to fight another, if that means arming one minority and saying, go, fight your government, Druze, go, I choose you, and, just firing them at the Syrian government, if that means tearing the country apart as best as the Israeli government can get away with, no problem. All the better for my success as the Israeli state. There's no Israeli perception of Syrians as brothers, as fellow natives. These aren't, people from America or Poland or wherever. That would make sense in terms of alignment as ethnic brothers then. No, these are foreigners with a foreign tongue. Ironically, they're not in foreign lands. There's the Israeli state that's got a foreign ethnicity as its demographic of prioritization, even though it's currently Israel's current championed class are the foreigners, ethnically speaking, but that means that they've got no ties to the land or the people around them. These external forces, like Israel, like America in the northeast with the Kurdish separatists, these external forces profit from chaos in the country, whether it's arms deals, regional powers playing proxy games like Israel, or global powers extracting resources like America. Fun fact, they were backing the Kurds in the northeast. Guess where the oil is? It's the same as in any country where the central government has not got full control. The foreigners barely care if your territory, barely care if your territory burns as long as they benefit from it somehow. Because it's all stolen land anyway, it's all foreign to them. Ashara's call for unity resonates with millions of Syrians that have seen in the last 6 months something special, a gateway to a brighter future, where Syria is unified, peaceful, healing, and eventually prosperous and able to defend itself. That's the dream for the Syrian state. It's the current government's task to see if they can stabilize despite outside and inside pressure. A tall task, a tall order. But the gambit has already been played for those who are upset about the current government existing, right? The civil war's over. It's done. For better or worse. I'm not supporting or opposing it. I'm giving you the analysis. Assad is gone. For better or worse. For better, some would say, as millions of Syrians can attest to, because they're not under brutal minority rule anymore. Or for worse, as some Assadists will claim, especially seeing current Israeli action. They say, look, Bashar al-Assad never allowed Israel to do this, that, and the other. Well, they missed the part where Israel didn't have to do anything because Bashar al-Assad was not a threat to Israel. Now Israel is actually worried about Syria. They're actually doing stuff. But they sort of spin that somehow as Jolani is a Mossad agent. How? Like, he's losing ground. He's losing his country. He's shouting and screaming to unify the country so he can stand up against Israel in the future. And you're saying he's an agent. Anyway, for better or as in, like, it's not analytically sound. It's just a sort of weird conspiracy theory that with a very little rationale behind it. Now, for better or worse, the Syrian civil war is done. Now comes the hard work after. Will Syria sink or swim? Will it be unity and stability and prosperity for all, or will it shatter once more, with Israel lighting new fires between communities in their northern neighbor to keep them wobbling continuously so that Israel can keep its grasp as firmly as you can be as a spectacular foreigner, but to keep its grasp on what it currently controls. Time will tell, as it always does, and I'll be here to report to you the news and the analysis, unbiased and without the Western spin. I'm Mahfuz. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you on the next one.